Okay, so here's some assistance in solving a two-step equation with signed fractions. And this particular problem can be a little bit confusing as there are a few different parts to it. But try not to get overwhelmed, as many of the things we're going to talk about you already have some good background knowledge on. It's just a matter of combining a few different skills to get to this particular answer. So if you take a look at this problem, what we have is negative 1/2 v minus 1/7 is equal to negative 2/3. And if you think about subtracting, or for that matter adding fractions, and what the first and perhaps the most important step is when you are adding or subtracting fractions, it is finding the lowest common denominator. And this is where we're going to start with this problem. Step 1 is going to be to find the LCD, or the lowest common denominator. So take a second and think about what that is. You can hit the pause button if you'd like, or just stick with me. So when you are trying to come up with the lowest common denominators, really the easiest way to go about it is to start with the largest of the denominators. In this case it is 7, and count by sevens until you get to a number that all of the different numbers, in this case 2, 3, and 7, fit into. So lowest common denominator here is 42. And once we have that, step 2 is going to be to multiply all of the terms by the LCD. And that's what we are going to do right now. Alright, so once we multiply all of the terms by 42, we're going to go ahead, and I wrote down for step 3, solve like a regular equation. So here we go. Here's the multiplication aspect of this problem. We are going to take 42 and multiply negative 1/2 v by 42. We're going to multiply negative 1/7 by 42. And we are going to multiply negative 2/3 by 42. So if you recall, with multiplication of fractions, one of the things that we can do right here is cross cancel. And I'm just going to bring these answers down here. So 42 over 1 multiplied by negative 1/2 gives us negative 21. And if you want, we can cross cancel, and what I mean by that is to say this 2, if we divide it by 2, turns into 1. And this 42, if we divide it by 2, turns into 21. And 21 over 1 is 21, and remember there is a negative symbol. So we've got negative 21b. Moving on to the negative 1/7, we have 42 over 7. 7 goes into itself once, 7 goes into 42 6 times, and this becomes 6 over 1, or simply 6. So we've got negative 21v minus 6 is equal to, and now we will deal with this last term, and 42 and 3. 3 goes into itself one time, 3 goes into 42 14 times, and 2 times 14 is 28, and don't forget there is a negative sign in front of the 2/3. So this is equal to negative 28. And at this point we are basically done with the fractions. We have turned all of these terms into whole numbers. Okay, so now we are going to proceed as if this were a more typical algebra equation. We've got numbers on both sides, and we are going to add 6 to the left and 6 to the right, which will leave us with negative 21v on the left, and that is going to be equal to negative 22. And the final step here is going to be to divide both sides by negative 21. And we have our answer. V is equal to 22 over 21, since they are both negatives. And I believe the ALEKS program would like the answer like this. You could also write this out as 1 and 1 over 21, and that would be correct. Alright, I hope that makes some sense, and I hope that enhances the explain button on the ALEKS program. Let's go ahead and do one more problem. So here we have our second example, and you'll recall from the first example, the first step is to take a look at the denominators, 2, 4, and 8, and attempt to find the least or the lowest common denominator. So if you want, you can hit the pause button and try to work through that before I give it away. Alright, so hopefully you came up with 8 as the least common denominator, and step 2 is to multiply now all the terms by 8. So here we go. So I've rewritten the problem, and I am going to go ahead and write down our lowest common denominator next to each of the terms. I've got my 8 right there, times negative 1/2. That is going to combine to give us a negative 4. I've got 7 over 4x, and I'm going to multiply that by 8. It's really being multiplied by 8 over 1. I can cross cancel. 4 goes into itself one time, 4 goes into 8 twice, and 2 times 7 is 14. So 8 times 7/4 is 14. It's plus. So I've got plus 14x. And finally, I've got my 8 over here, and it's being multiplied by a negative 5/8. And this is convenient as my 8's disappear. 8 goes into itself once, and I am left with a minus 5. Which brings me to the third step now. And now I'm simply, step 3 here, I'm just going to solve for the variable. In this case, solve for x. So I'm going to come down here and add 4 to the left side and add 4 to the right. I am left with 14x is equal to negative 1. And the last step over here, I'm going to drag all this over, rewrite that. 14x is equal to negative 1. I will divide both sides by 14, and I end up with x is equal to negative 1/14. And that is the answer to this particular problem. Hopefully those two examples can help you work through this somewhat complicated but certainly within your range concept. Alright, good luck.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.